Okay, so give us some background. The Dakota Access Pipeline. There's been a lot of pipelines in the news over the past couple of years. One major one was the Keystone Pipeline, that ultimately the permit for which was rejected. The Dakota Access Pipeline. Where does that? How long is it? What is it? Where is it? What's it for? I guess. I mean, obviously, for delivering oil, but or I should say, fossil fuel. But where is it headed to?
Okay, well, it's 1,172 miles long, and it originates in the Bakken oil fields in South Dakota, and delivers the oil, crude oil, from South Dakota. It travels through the state of Iowa, and then it goes underneath the Mississippi River to Patoka, Illinois. A lot of people, because of the Standing Rock protests, might have thought that the pipeline was exclusively in South Dakota. However, the biggest portion of the pipeline runs like a cancel bar from the top. It's kind of rectangular, and it runs from the northwest corner down to the southeast corner of Iowa.
And so the biggest site of protest was at Standing Rock.
Standing Rock.
Yeah. Tell people what Standing Rock is, and the participants in the protest grew over time, and we're talking back in 2016.
So much.
What is what is Standing Rock, and who were the people who participated in this protest?
Sure, I'm not an authority on that. However, what I do know is that it's an indigenous-led movement to protest the pipeline as it was passing through and near tribal lands. The protest drew protesters from all over the world. It drew some celebrity protesters, and it also drew the attention of Jessica Reznicek and Ruby Montoya separately. Jessica heard about it and hitchhiked to Standing Rock to learn what was going on there, but ultimately felt like Jessica had an activist background, she thought she could be of use there. But soon enough, she realized that there was a strong, well-led protest happening there, and she decided she might be of more use in another part of where the pipeline was going to pass through. And so she traveled to the Mississippi River in eastern Iowa, where the pipeline was going to go underneath the Mississippi River, and started an encampment there. Ruby Montoya also heard about the pipeline. At the time, she was working as a school teacher in Colorado, and she also went to Standing Rock, and she heard about Jessica's little kind of small one-woman protest on the Mississippi River, and decided that she could be of more help there. So traveled to eastern Iowa to kind of start another, like a satellite water protectors protest stance.
And we should say, like, there's a couple of there's crossover. I mean, there's I guess you could say on some level some form of intersectionality between you have protesters who are trying to protect indigenous land and indigenous water supplies.
Yes.
You have other protesters, and maybe it's not even fair to put them in exclusive boxes, but in terms of catalysts for the protest and protection of other water, of rivers, of the Mississippi, of other bodies of water. And then broadly speaking, it is a way to throw a wrench in the gears of our production of fossil fuel and our burning of fossil fuel of course, we have a lot of fracking that took place in North Dakota over the past, I guess, decade or so. And as technology improved to extract this oil, it became more, I guess, valuable because it was it was no longer as expensive to extract it from the ground. I mean, give us a sense of like who owns the Dakota Access Pipeline. I mean, what
Well, it's interesting, Sam. I mean, that's a really great question because it's considered part of our nation's energy infrastructure. It was built by Energy Transfer's partners. I believe it's a Texas-based company, which is traded on the stock market. And that distinction is important because when Ruby and Jessica committed their eco arsons, they were then took credit for them. They were charged with felonies because they tampered, interfered, used arson with with national energy infrastructure. So suddenly, it's a federal crime versus if they had set fire to something else that would be just considered private property and wouldn't have been a federal crime.
And this is obviously hugely important in terms of the jurisdiction in which it's tried and the nature of the penalty. And I wonder, and maybe this is beyond your portfolio, and if it is, that's okay. But what does it take to become part of that national infrastructure? In other words, if I build portions of this pipe, presumably they're not constructing this right where they lay it, right? They build this and it gets shipped up there in pieces, presumably from Texas. If I was to light it on fire in Texas when it's just sitting in a warehouse, it's not. At that point, is it a felony to have lit it on fire before it becomes deployed? Is it a felony to light it on fire before the oil comes through it? I mean, at what point does it cross that threshold into a piece of federal property, which of course, I would imagine this company is also still responsible for the upkeep of this federal property. But at what point does it become federal property that it would be a felony in some way to light it on fire, to cause some type of property destruction?
I think that's a great question, and certainly, this story has piqued my interest in law and terminology. I can't answer that. I can share that the oil that passes through the pipeline is sold on the world market. So it's not necessarily oil that is going to be refined and stay in the United States and fill up my gas tank or help keep me warm this winter. It's going to be sold, and that's going to be profit for Energy Transfer partners and their shareholders.
Hi, I'm Sam Seder. You can watch the rest of this interview and more on our Peacock show, which streams at 5 p.m. weekdays on The Choice from Peacock TV.